think about it, and I'm gonna get super famous. Not like maybe Kevin Hart famous or Dane Cook famous to where I'm big for a minute,
Oh no.
but then I'm gonna go into obscurity. But there's gonna be girls in high school that are gonna be like, Brendan, you were kind of weird back then, but now you're weird still, but you're making money. So can we like get together? And that's why I'm gonna be like, you bet, but I'm leaving you with the kid. That's how it's gonna be. I'm gonna be a scumbag. They'd be like, "Where's the child support?" I'm like, "No, no."
I'd be like, new phone, who dis?
New phone, who's this? I'm gonna be like Drizzy Drake, cross the border, be like, "You can't."
Do you know who Adonis is? Exactly.
No, I don't need that. Nah. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm gonna get famous, and I am going to abuse that power.
It works pretty. It's worked pretty well for Chris Brown so far, I guess.
I call it Chris Brown syndrome. You can do whatever you want as long as at least one person likes.
As long as you have 1.3 million fans on Facebook.
I got like 10 real friends. I'm averaging like 30 likes a post, so I'm on my way up there.
It's better than Clout City.
Hey man, that's a group, and that's just yeah. I think I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good for myself, all things considered. With that being said, this is our first podcast in almost a year.
Almost a year, I think. Yeah.
Because
sounds about right.
Because
life.
Busy with jobs. We want to get rich quick, but we can't just drop our.
It turns out getting rich quick isn't as easy as they make it in the movies.
I mean, some people, they got that luck. They'd be like, yo, hard work, dedication, my EP coming out. It's like, no, some dude just heard you, or you were waiting outside somebody's studio and said, give me a chance. And you got one. That's cool. Good for you. I'm proud of you, but that's why I'm going to keep stacking my little essential employee status checks until I make it. And, well, when I'm famous, we going to be famous. And like I said, we're going to abuse that.
That's true. Going all the way to the top, it doesn't matter who gets famous. You
right.
coming with.
That's right. If I have to be like, climbing the ladder of success by just hanging onto your belt loop, I'm
coming up. That might seem like a burden, but I promise I'm not. I can buy my own food.
You will support both of us because you will be climbing that ladder with my dead weight hanging to your belt loop.
And I promise, we're gonna eat big. You ever heard of the dollar menu?
I'll make sure they'll be like, hey, you can't be spending all that money, you gotta keep making it. But behind your back, I'll be eating the real heavy stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like the lobsters, the steak, and when I'm fat and you're still carrying me up that ladder of success.
This isn't working for me anymore, we ran out of steak a couple days ago. I don't get it, man. Do you not like me anymore?
Hey, man, I'm only in it for the money.
Exactly. Now that I think about it, I remember one of the, I think it was the very first conversations we had about that, where you're just like, hey, man, if you get big, dude, just know I'm only in it for the money. But, hey, man, at least you're honest.
And I think since then, that's been our whole thing.
I think so, yeah.
11 years of friendship. I know deep down we're like, I think this guy is going to get me to the top.
Something like that, yeah. It's like if I'm riding somebody's coattails, it's this dude.
He was in the military. He didn't get a Dodge Charger, so he must be
I must be doing something right.
I saw you got that brand new truck out there, so I know. I said, this dude's
there's a lot of money coming through, huh?
Steady source of income. I know the government at least gives you some money every month.
Yeah, but so I'd say a 4-minute intro is probably a pretty decent.
That was 4 minutes of an intro. Wow, look at us go.
Yeah, man. So everybody who was, I guess, faithful to us.
The whole two of you, the one guy, shout out to my boy Matt, who asked me what up with the podcast, and I said, bro, life. So, Matt, make sure you get this. I'm going to put it on vinyl, EP, and when it goes platinum, gold, whatever, we're going to plaque it up on your wall, dog, in honor of Matt.
By the way, you're going to have to pay for all the hanging expenses. We got bills.
There's going to be a, what they call that, the service charge?
The finder's fee.
Not even just that, the when you go get your car fixed.
Oh, it's
Labor.
parts and labor. Yeah.
Labor.
So we supply the parts and the labor. So I'm sorry, man, but
And if you support the parts, well, we're gonna have to verify that they're good enough for us. And if they're not, well, you still have to pay us for the ones we think you should have got.
yeah, this is I think I want to say this is episode number
5,
7, 8,
7, 8.
something. I can't remember. It's funny enough. I was when I think I had gotten back from working out, and I was like, oh man, I wonder, because I think I was trying to show something to somebody, and I was like, oh, let me double check real quick, and I'm like trying to scroll through my subscriptions thing on YouTube, and I was like, I know I'm subscribed to my own podcast, like why wouldn't I be? And I finally found it, and I was like, oh man, I think it's been a long time, and I think it was funny that it was just like our last episode was called something and a hiatus because it had been like almost like a month or so since we had released a podcast.
Well, now we'll just call this COVID Conundrum.
COVID Conundrum.
Because it's been a quarantine kind of.
I think technically speaking, I think we're breaking the law making this podcast right now.
As far as I know, yeah, you're about 2 feet away from me.
I think even that, I think me just driving from my house to here.
You know what?
Is technically because it wasn't essential travel, as they'd like to say.
Well, no, let's be honest here. The original travel was I'm getting my car fixed and you were going to help me get it. And those scumbags need to keep it overnight again. And I figured, well, why don't you stay here and, hey, we can get this podcast cranked out. We have all the equipment.
That's true, because I was thinking about that even after I had left, and I think even with us doing it once a week at the time, it was pretty conducive.
Mm-hmm.
I think that doing it once a week was a good idea, and I mean now, because you get off, I wouldn't say fairly early, but at a decent time Friday nights, and I don't work, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so...
Yep, because I'd be getting off at that 3 p.m. swag, and then...
Yeah, and so, I mean, I could come over, at like 4.
That's what I'm saying, man.
I mean, at this point, I'd say our schedules are probably pretty aligned as far as getting everything up. And
perfectly balanced as all things should be, like the homie Thanos said.
He wasn't wrong.
He wasn't, man. And now that this COVID came through, guess what it did? It proved that point. And people don't like that, but...
I'm thinking someone needs to start snapping their fingers and, we need to get somewhere.
What did Lil Jon say?
You snap your fingers and do your stand. I remember E40 was... I remember growing up, and so when we moved back from Arizona, we were living with some family members, and they had DirecTV, and I didn't quite know... Like, I would just watch whatever... But then once we moved out of their house and we moved into our own house, I remember that's when I discovered the channel Fuse. And so Fuse is kind of like MTV now, where at first it was just like, music stuff, and there's some TV shows here and there, but now it's just like, Campus PD or whatever it is.
Just crazy reality shows.
And it's nothing to do with really music anymore. And I remember, I can't remember exactly which TV show it was that they had shown it on, but they played the music video for Snap Your Fingers, and I was like, this song blows, dude. I was like, this is terrible, because at the time I was not like into hip hop like whatsoever, and dude, I was like, this is not. I was like, who the hell listens to this? And then fast forward probably, I don't know, 10, 12 years probably. I think I was sitting in my room and I was like, what was that song where it was like the strobe lights? I was like, it was an epileptic episode waiting to happen. I said, Snap Your Fingers by Lil Jon, and I watched it, and I watched it every single day, I think, for like 2 weeks straight, just because, that's, for me, that's how, like, music always is. Like, I get, like, attached to, like, one song, and I'll literally just play it over and over and over again until it's just annoying.
And it's weird sometimes because I do that too. But like when I have someone in the car with me and I'll be controlling the music and I'm like, I want to listen to this song again and again and again. But I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah, I can't do that because I don't want people to think I'm weird by listening to the same song for 2 hours.
Because this person can be like, why are we still listening to this song? I'm like, does.
It's just so good. I can't.
Like it, man.
I can't help it. And but yeah, man, I'm the same way. Um, it was funny because I actually got bitched at about listening to music in my truck because it was like I'd listen to the same like 4 or 5 songs,
Mm.
and I can't remember who I was with, but they were like, "But I want to hear the same 5 songs that you listen to in the shower," and I said, "But that's what I like. Like that's the kind of music that I want to listen to. Like I don't care that I'm not in the shower." And I was like, "Yeah, this is the only chance that I get to listen to music like outside of the house. Like it's in
Freely.
my truck."
Mm.
And so,
Give me a purpose to just cruise.
yeah, and
Blast some
I do that
jams.
all the time. I do it to work. Like I would like almost not necessarily set up a playlist, but like I would like pick out like what I wanted to listen to. Like obviously because you pick out what you want to listen to anyway. But
Well, that's what I like about the music apps out there now, the Spotify's titles, Apple Music, whatever. You can like a song, and it makes it convenient for me because whatever songs I've like recently are at the top of that list, and so those are the ones I really want to listen to that are fresh in my head. So I can just play it, and it'll just go down. And usually by that point, I'll get to my destination, or if I'm cruising, then I can either keep going down the list or start back up from the top. Um, and that kind of reminds me because you're talking about Snap Your Fingers, Little John, and you were just playing that over and over again. Because I don't remember the dude's name, but there was a song when I was younger. My sister listened to, and the whole thing, the guy's like, everybody in the club getting tipsy.
oh, I know what song you're talking about because that was one of the songs that I found
So
when I was in the military, and I was like, everybody in the club, we're at a barracks party or whatever, and we're just hanging out and and I always thought it was funny that I didn't growing up and like just being around just, like the group of friends that I had. Even now, like people are always like, "Yeah, dude, country music sucks. I hate country music." And dude, I swear to God, I when I joined the military, I kind of went into it that with that aspect or like that thought process.
mm-hmm.
Dude, you put Chicken Fried on by the Zach Brown Band? Dude, it's game over.
It's
Everybody knows that
done.
song. Everybody knows that song, and I mean everybody's drunk, so it's one of those things that it definitely it I
It's
think
a
it intensifies like the atmosphere of everything, and so everyone's like, just partying or whatever, and
drunken military kumbaya,
kind
if
of.
you will.
I mean, I wouldn't say that Chicken Fried was like that go to. There was a lot of songs that were on that list, and it did vary between who you were hanging out with, like if you were at somebody's house, like that sort of thing, and but yeah, man, like it's funny how crazy or like how important music is
Mm-hmm.
to just I guess daily life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know most people are kind of like, oh yeah, music is pretty crazy and blah blah blah, but like you don't really realize it until you like actually sit down and think about what it is that you're trying to like accomplish.
Well, and something that I think is kind of funny music wise, it happens all the time, is music is very important as a medium, and with certain things it's just something that's just fun, but a lot of it it's that expression of this is how I feel, and you get a lot of emotion, but I think that some of that can be changed when you don't hear the lyrics correctly, and you think you're getting the song wrong. So bring it back. Everybody in the club getting tipsy, right? No, I'm thinking everybody in the club eating chips. I'm just having a time thinking, I don't know why they rapping about eating them chips in the club, but that's how I'm feeling. And so, of course, it's a different vibe. And there's plenty of songs where you're thinking, oh, wow, this is what he says. And someone's like, you moron.
Yeah, there's a song that I had listened to for years,
Mm-hmm.
and I had finally figured out just by happenstance by listening to the song that, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the song was, and it's probably gonna bother me the entire time that we're doing this, but I finally figured out one of the lyrics, and I said, that makes a lot more sense. Like now that I understand what he's saying, I was like, that makes sense. I was like, I get it now.
What is it? There's that band POD. They have that song, the youth of a nation. You jam into it. We are euthanasia, and you're like, wait, oh, the euthanasia, because they wouldn't talk about euthanizing people. Oh, I'm double wrong.
They were just talking about kids.
The youth of the nation. Well, the youth of Asia, that's the youth of a nation. So Maybe I'm
I
still
suppose I
right.
can see where you're coming from, but
Or when they're growling. Well, that I don't know what they're talking about. I'm just there vibing to the hey, they're mad.
that's true.
I'm mad too.
Hey man, I ain't never been so angry in my life.
How can I display that anger? I'm gonna yell at this microphone. Just play a funky beat. They won't care what I'm saying.
Hey Stuart, or hey Beavis, let's call Stuart.
That's exactly it, man. You just yell at people over the phone, or you yell at them over a microphone and the music. And you just
which a funny last concert I went to was it was back in February,
mm,
and I remember I was thinking about it, and I was like, I can't really hear the music because it was like a really small place, and I was like, I can hear the music, but like I was like, I have no idea what song it is that they're playing. And it was like for me like small venue is cool,
mm-hmm.
and it because like obviously it's more intimate, and you feel like you're, I guess in a weird way like closer to the band or whatever, but sometimes you can be playing a little too much, and it's just it and it was weird because it kind of detracted from the experience of like going to a concert.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand concerts are supposed to they're supposed to be loud, and like you're supposed to be there to have like a good time, and don't get me wrong, I had a great time, but I just remember like in the moment I was like, this is kind of weird. Like I'm kind of like almost kind of felt lost in like a weird kind of way, and I was like, I've been to multiple concerts, and I was like, I've never had this feeling before, of just like not understanding what the hell was going on, and so it's just for me, it was one of those things that I was like I said, I got kind of confused, and I was like, I don't know how to feel right now, and so I thought about it for like 20 minutes.
That's how I felt because I went to one of those concerts where there's no seats. It's all stand up. And we saw this hip hop group called Earth Gang. Great show. The only issue is it's blazing cold outside. Blazing cold, freezing cold
Blazing
outside.
cold.
But yeah, no, it's freezing cold outside. It's snowing. It's not a good time. We're out there waiting. They finally let us in. Great. I got this big old coat on. Finally, everybody started piling in this
Yeah, and then it
building.
gets hot.
And I was hot, but I was like, I can't put my coat anywhere. I'm sitting there jumping up and down going, just trying my hardest to.
Yeah, dude, it gets, and I think that for me, that's the other like weird part about like small venues is it doesn't seem to matter what you wear, you're always overdressed. It's just you're hot all the time.
And you know how you know this? When the people on stage are sweating and they're taking their shirt off, and you're sitting there looking at this dude looking like a Greek Adonis sweating, and you're like, he's only wearing pants. I'm in this big old coat,
Dude,
surrounded by people
like
getting bopped around.
I have my body temperature regulation is so terrible. Like the moment it gets like slightly too hot, I'm like uncomfortable. And but like like especially it's always like one of those weird things like growing up like going to someone's house.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell their parents that it's hot in their house. They're not gonna care. They're gonna be like, oh, just take your pants off or whatever, or just
I don't want to take my pants off. You're strangers.
yeah, and it's like people are like they don't care. Like that's how they're comfortable. Like I can't. Like I'm just some nerd from the 7th grade.
Hey, you came to mine.
Exactly. Like and so like if it's too cold, like now I've come to appreciate the cold, so it's not really that big of a deal. But especially if it's hot, like it's miserable, and so like any time like I'm just like overly hot, it's like and it does detract from the experience. Like there's been plenty of times that there's a local place here in town called the Black Sheep that's pretty small, and
that's where I went. That's where I was wearing that big coat.
Dude, it sucks. It sucks being in there because like I think the couple of times that I'd gone, I was wearing like a tank top and shorts, and I'm still sweating my ass off.
Imagine me.
And it's hot in there. There are no AC in there.
And I think the other negative part about it is I got some big old boobs, and so they're probably flopping around getting their own little exercise workout in there. And talking about like going to people's houses when it's hot, when it's cold. That's also fun. Like when they forget to give you the blanket.
Yeah, forgetting the blanket. I can't. I remember the first time that had ever happened to me. It was when I was living in Arizona. I had spent the night at my buddy Kyle's house, and like they had a loft up in their house, and It was like everything was great. We all slept, and I woke up in the middle of the night just freezing. And I went to go try to get the blanket. Well, he had an older brother, and that older brother's friend had also come over that night. And that older brother just happens to somehow manage to get the blanket. And so I'm like trying to like pull, and obviously, I think his brother and his friend were probably, 3 or 4 years older than us. And so, dude, it was not like there was no way I was getting that blanket. So I just remember like in and out of like consciousness all like the rest of the night. And I woke up and I was like, being a kid, like you don't really feel tired when you wake up. But dude, it
Well,
was rough. I
and,
was not having a good time.
and thinking about that stuff always gets me tripping because there's a couple different segues on this. First one is that's why I started always bringing like a hoodie and like long pants and nice socks with me just to be safe. So if ever did happen, I'm good to go. Secondly, having me once at your house and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm not gonna wake him up and ask him for a blanket, so I got a towel. And I
I
wrapped
think I remember you telling me. I think I remember you telling me about
and I
that.
wrapped a towel in because I was like, I got sleeves on, but my legs. So I just wrapped the towel on my legs. And I was like, I'm good to go, and I slept on your floor. Um, but it also makes me think about American history. You look at like the Donner Party; they just slept together to keep warm, but
Mm-hmm.
they're in the cold. And I'm just like, bro, I get the slightest breeze on me, I'm up. These
Yeah,
fools were
there,
laying in the snow.
yeah, dude. There's no way that like, and now that I think about it, it's probably part of the reason why they went crazy, dude.
It is. They
You
were getting
can't
hypothermia.
sleep.
Because I didn't know that about the hypothermia and stuff. Like your body starts like overheating itself to
Mm-hmm.
keep it warm. So you go, oh, you start taking all your clothes
Well,
off, and you go like,
that's why you feel cold when you have a fever, which is funny because I haven't had a fever in I don't know how long, and the last time I distinctly remember having a fever, we were at the house that that we still live in now, and I had like I was starting to feel kind of cold, but I knew the heat was on,
mm-hmm.
and so I had put on like I had put like pajama pants over my basketball shorts. And then I put like a hoodie on, and I was still feeling kind of cold. So like I put like a long sleeve sweater my uh, over my hoodie, and then I was like, dude, I'm freezing. And so I normally don't like to wear my hood up, just because you get way too hot.
Look like a thug.
And I'm sitting there, and like I put a coat on,
uh-huh.
and I was like, dude, I'm freezing. And I like get underneath my blankets, and my dad came in, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm freezing," and I'm just in there shivering, just having this fever all by myself because I was like, "Dude, I don't want to go out. I don't want to leave my room."
A Brandon burrito, your little face popping
You're
out.
just freezing, man. It was, and I think I woke up the next day, and I was like, I felt fine because you sweat it out, but I was like, what the hell was that? I was so confused because I think it wasn't until probably like hour two that I was like, I think I have a fever.
And that's so crazy. 'Cause, like nowadays we have all these amenities for these things, and so I look at these situations like. And it just baffles me because could you imagine nowadays someone going postal and going cannibal because you didn't give them a blanket to go to
Yeah, I could see
sleep?
that. I could see that. Like
Just
honest. I
what?
think I think it's one of those things that like humans, especially now because people are so comfortable with what they have, that like you take like the stupidest thing away. Like if like let's say someone is all about their privacy, and like let's just say that you took like their curtains from their window, and like you just told them that you're like, yeah, man, you can't have curtains in here anymore. Like it's a rule.
Who the heck do you think you are with these curtains, dude?
Yeah, and like if, at first they might be like, oh, that's stupid, blah blah blah, and they'd be like, all right, whatever. Like I don't feel like really breaking the rules, and then but then eventually it would start to get to them. They'd be like,
Hey,
wait a
those are
second,
mine.
where are my curtains at? And they'd like be pacing back and forth in wherever it is that they're at, and just be like, those are my curtains, just freaking out.
Because now I'm just thinking, like, someone goes to your house, they sleep the night, whatnot, forget to give them a blanket, and then they just do an Undertaker little pop up, bop, and then next thing you know, they just get so pissy and they get up and they're like, that's it, I'm cold, I'm gonna eat this fool. I'm gonna starve.
I'm gonna eat this guy.
And you wake up, it's like, oh, you need a blanket?
It's so
It's too late. It's too late.
It's so funny that would be like the jump. It's just like, Joe, I'm freezing my ass off. That's it, Billy. You're done, so I'm eating you. Give me that leg.
You could just get a blanket. Nah,
I don't need a blanket. I'm starving. It's like, well, you weren't starving 20 minutes ago when we killed that deer. I'm starving. Not only that, but I'm taking your blanket and your leg, dog. I don't care anymore.
And I'm taking your skull as a trophy.
They'd be like, you remember Vietnam? And they're like, what the hell's a Vietnam? They're like, I'm ears, necklace, you.
I'm gonna turn your torso into a drum.
They're like, Billy, what's wrong? And
I'm cold.
And so maybe things kind of settle down. Sun comes up. Everything seems fine. But everyone separates themselves from Billy, and they're like, yo, does anyone, was that a weird dream that I had? Or they're like, no, Billy was going crazy.
And then you look over and Billy's just in the bushes eyeballing it.
Billy's just over there freezing because they still ain't give him a blanket.
Maybe we should give him a blanket. I don't know, Billy's a little weird. We should just leave him here.
He's just out there freezing and and there's just a little council saying, maybe we should all just gang up on Billy. He can't take all of us. But that human rage, he just has been boiling in him ever since they left St. Louis.
And they act like everything's cool. They look over at little Billy, and he's just looking like he's about to carve a turkey.
He's sharpening this blade that his daddy gave him.
Smiling at him with a crazy eye.
Yeah, and you're just like, there's no way. And then that's how it all started. Is that just one by one they all descended into madness, and they're just like,
Billy, how'd it taste? Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good,
Yep, found out that I did have a blanket in my bag, too.
I
am embarrassed.
He's like, life is crazy. I had a blanket on me the whole time.
You're mad that there's no blanket. And the next thing you know, there was a blanket the whole time.
There's a blanket back right there in my knapsack.
And now that's just, because I think about it, that happening now, you just, dude's on your couch. Bob, that's it, Brandon. Ain't give me a blanket.
That's it. You ain't give me a blanket. I lived here for 2 days. You'd be like in the 8th grade, minding your own business. You got all those hormones rushing through you because you're 13, 14 years old. You don't know how to control your emotions. You're an asshole. And just, like you said, Undertaker just doom. And then just, you pile drive your best friend because they ain't give you a blanket. Or my thing always was not having enough food. I know that sounds really first world problem, but you eat a normal amount at your house, but then you go and you don't want to overeat because you don't want to take maybe that they use leftovers to eat lunch the next day. I was like, dude, and you're just sitting there and you're just like, bro, I'm hungry, and they're like, how are you hungry? You ate dinner 3 days ago.
Could you imagine you're in your sleep and then you just wake up in the air, flipping upside down, what's going on? Because you're about to get tombstone pile drive.
You're just like, what's happening? And they're just like, I didn't get more than 6 chicken nuggets. And I'm missing a blanket.
I'm going to let you talk to these people real quick, though. I'll be right back. I'm about to use a restroom, fool.
Well, this actually reminds me of all those times growing up about, being on Xbox Live. My cousin would be playing. He's like, hey man. He's like, hey man. I know you don't know my friend, but I gotta go to the bathroom, or I'm being called to go do chores or whatever, and you can talk to him, and just this awkward silence of just, just not knowing what to say, because it's you're growing up with older cousins, you realize that, you really don't know a lot of people until you start talking to your cousin's friends, who you have no idea who they are. And, that was my thing growing up, is it's pretty shy anyway, but now I'm being forced to talk to this person who I've probably never met. And they're like, oh yeah, just talk to him. And it's like, hey, how are you? And it's just, it's kind of like when you first got onto Xbox Live, and you really don't know what to talk about, so you just kind of, especially if you weren't the kid who raged, you would just be quiet the whole time, and people would be like, yo, why isn't this guy talking? What's going on? And then they start roasting you silently, but it's even more awkward because this other person doesn't know who you are, And so, for me, that was a huge thing, and it's just that's not my thing, man. Like, just being in an awkward position of just talking mindlessly for who knows how long, you know. For all I know, he could be gone. Brendan could be gone. He could have straight up disappeared and abandoned me to talk for who knows how long. But, you know, I guess at the end of the day, it is what it is. You find out what's going on and try to make the best of it, and hopefully with enough talking, I'm the one who can ride his coattails. That's really what it boils down to. I'm trying to ride somebody else's coattails, and so it's one of those very very awkward situations. And so funny enough, he actually just messaged me. He said, tell you guys about my first breakup. I I don't even know where that would be. I could tell you about the most awkward breakup I've had, because that was something. That was one of those. Oh, okay. We're on the same page then. Um, so I want to say, I think it was the 7th grade. Um, there was this girl in my class, and she was one of the more attractive females of my middle school, and we're sitting there, and I obviously had this crush on her, just me being me, and but it was one of those crushes that you always thought to yourself it was unattainable. And so, you know, time goes on. Eventually, I just kind of forget about it. Until one day, this group of girls, to include the girl that I had a crush on, all of a sudden show up to me and my group of friends. And it's like a really weird situation. They're like, oh, hey, Brandon, Sammy wants to ask you out. And I said, what? And, being kind of awestruck at the time and thinking to myself, like, no, there's no way. Like, that girl doesn't like me. And so I think eventually her friends kind of just peer pressured her into being like, no, like, you gotta ask. And again, with it being middle school, everyone's really super awkward. And I think one of her friends were like, she wants to ask you out. And so I said, okay. And so she was like, so, like, do you want to go out? And I said, sure. And so I remember, like, we ended up talking, like, the rest of the day. Like, I went home. I was all super excited because, I was like a dumb 12-year-old. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my god, I've landed, like, the girl of my dreams and yada, yada, yada. I get home, and this was back in the MySpace days. And so, like, I added her on MySpace, and, she adds me back, and, like, we're talking. And I was like, so, like, do you ever, like, maybe want to hang out? And she goes, why would I hang out with you? And I said, well, what do you mean? Like, isn't that what, like, people who go out do? Like, isn't, like, don't they hang out? And she goes, oh no, like, I would never want to hang out with you. So I remember being, like, kind of, like, just, like, confused. And I was like, what the hell? And so I didn't think anything of it. The conversation just kind of died off naturally. I went to bed, woke up the next day, go to school, and this girl was like, hey, Brandon, by the way, Sammy wants to break up with you. And I was like, okay, who cares? And then, so fast forward, I don't know, the timeline's kind of fuzzy in my head now. Fast forward maybe a couple of days, maybe a week or so, and it was like, she was like, oh yeah, they were like, yeah, no, Sammy didn't like you. Like, that whole thing was a dare. And I remember that alone, like, that moment, that was when it all had kind of, like, really come out. And I was like, what do you mean it was a dare? And I remember just being, like, really, like, upset and being like, that's, like, when I first started to get kind of self-conscious about myself, because I was like, I'm that guy who, like, girls are, like, daring to be like, oh, like, I dare you to go out with him. Like, it wasn't something that was, like, it wasn't something that I thought was just going to happen naturally. And then that's obviously, something like that happens to you in a fairly formative age, and you think to yourself, oh yeah, like, maybe I really am destined to be alone. And I think it's just those hormones coming back at you and just, making you think like, oh yeah, you're gonna be alone for the rest of your life, buddy, and just all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I think that was the first time that I had ever really experienced. I think it's actually, now that I think about it, the only time that I've ever experienced anything like that in my life. Like it wasn't even. I can't even think of something that would be comparable to that moment of just like that. It was almost like a crushing defeat. Where I was like, how did that happen? Like, who did I upset that that's what would happen? And it's one of those things that, like, growing up, like, I kind of lived with, and that I would kind of think about every once in a while, but I would never, like, fully blown think of until, like, some random time that I was, trying to mind my own business in bed. But yeah, I think that was probably one of the more awkward experiences of my life. What makes it even more awkward was I actually met that girl, that same Sammy girl, at a bar like 2 years ago, I think. I was, hanging out with. I think I was just by myself. I had a rough week or whatever, so I just, went to the bar to get a couple of drinks. And I look over and she's with this group of friends, and I said, "Yo, that's Sammy Weinbrenner." And I was kind of drunk at the time, so like I was so awestruck. I was like, "That's her." So got a little bit of liquid courage, and I asked her. I was like, did you happen to go to North Middle School?" And she goes, "Yeah, how did you know that?" And I was like, "I went there." I was like, "We were in the same class. Like,
You
we
broke
we
my heart.
we knew each other." And she goes, "Oh my God, it is you!" Blah blah blah. And like we kind of talked and smoked a cigarette together, and nothing really ever came of it. And I think I ended up going home very shortly after that, and just. But yeah, that I remember like distinctly. I was like, "That's her." Like, there's no way it's not. Like, it's one of those things where like, you recognize someone and you're like, maybe it's not them, but then like you realize, no, that's them, and it makes the entire situation even more awkward.
And thank you for letting me do that. That was terrible.
I can imagine.
But the good news is I heard you the whole time, and I laugh every time because that's terrible. Just
I'm telling you, it's one of those things that I think it really like messed with me. Like it messed with me for years, and I didn't even think about it.
no, I the girls in my middle school would have like those lists of the hot boys and whatnot, and I was never put on those lists, so I was like, this sucks. But that's not what you had to deal with. But I did have something similar, which I told you about, where I had gone to this was sixth grade. I went to a dance, and we were all dancing, like sixth graders do. They played the you're cranking it, that Soldier Boy, and you're having a good old time. I'm on the dance floor. Little shorty approaches me. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, hey, let me buy you a Dr. Pepper, because that's what you did. So I did. I'm talking to her, and I'm like, we should go out. She's like, yeah. So I'm thinking, yo, I'm the man, dude. I got this girl. She under my fingers right now. I'm ready. And so, of course, it's sixth grade, so going out really doesn't even count, because where are you going to take her? You ain't got no money.
You're just gonna go to a park or something
Go
like
to a
that,
Chuck
yeah.
E. Cheese play date
Yeah,
with her parents? Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think so. So I go home to my parents, and they just look at me like I'm stupid because, yeah, sixth grade. But let's fast forward. I'm at school. I'm avoiding this girl because I don't know what I just got myself into. I'm thinking this is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, hands down. Or top 10 at least. Dumbest thing I've ever done. Because I don't know anything about women. I don't even know anything about, like, middle school. I'm still learning myself. This is maybe, like, 3 months in the sixth grade, right? So I'm fresh out of elementary. I know some of the schools do the full, K to 12th grade. That's not how this operation worked. So let's fast forward. I'm in class, doing my thing, getting them C's, C average 2.0, what it do. Now, when I leave class, though, this one girl comes up to me that, is kind of like a mutual friend of both of us. She comes up to me and says, hey, just so you're aware, she wants to break up with you. And little me, being the tough guy I am, say, if she want to break up with me, she can do it herself. Now, a little impossible for her because I was avoiding her the whole time because I know what to do. So, she had her whole little posse try to come and break up with me, but I was, being the man rather than just taking that high road. I say, nah, if she want to break up with me, she can, herself. But from that point on, we just kind of broke up, and that's just how it was. That's that middle school love. And so I tried not to chase girls through middle school, mostly because one, they weren't having it. Little ugly bucktooth Brendan back in the elementary middle school days, not anything to really look at. Today, still nothing to really be looking at. But hey, here I am. I'm doing my thing. I make it work. Uh, so with that, I was pretty much single and ugly throughout middle school. So when high school hit, and I ended up finding women who did actually take interest in me, blew my mind. Just blew my whole mind because I'm like, first things first, who are you? Why are you doing this? Who sent you? Are you a government employee? Are you an alien?
Definitely
Are you
a
trying
government
to
employee.
clone me?
Definitely from the government.
A government alien trying to clone me? All at the same thing. And so, and I learned a lot through that first breakup, though. I was like, women ain't nothing but O's and tricks, like Pac said. But that was totally not it. I just didn't know what to do. I was in middle school. I didn't know how that worked. I thought I was the big kahuna burger.
And yeah, I think that's one of those things is that there was a kid who I went to middle school with. He would always granted middle school is only 3 years, but for 7th grade I remember he dated a girl the entire school year.
Mm-hmm.
Then the summer happened, and something happened between him and her, and it just didn't work. The next year, it was the same thing, but it was a different chick. But he dated her the whole school year, and I'm like looking back on it, I'm like, how did people do that?
Maybe the internet went out over summer, and so she's like, "That's it, we're done." And he was like, "No, my internet was out." But hey, by that point, too late. You can't explain it. Young, dumb love. But
I suppose that could be it, but it's one of those middle school. So obviously that and I think you had told me that you'd wanted to kind of do the same thing, that you had kind of aspired to be a teacher.
what was that?
Well, that's what they're doing up there. They're banging everywhere.
Sorry for people who don't know. There was a ruckus going on outside, and Brandon just started thrusting his hips for me, and I was trying to figure out, because I thought that's what he was saying, is he wanted to do the same thing I wanted to do, and he started thrusting his hips.
No, I just there's just. But
Yeah, be a teacher.
Anyway, get back on track here. Get back on track.
Fucking a student, is that?
And so obviously, growing up, you didn't quite really know what you wanted to do, and then throughout high school, you kind of more so fall into line. I think the teachers in high school were a little bit more impactful than maybe in middle school or in elementary school.
More impressionable because you're in a.
I think
most of the time they'll treat you like an adult.
For the most part, obviously there are those teachers who don't. Well,
take your hat over the building.
Yeah, and so I had eventually wanted to be a teacher, and that's something that every once in a while I still kind of think about doing.
You and me both, sister.
Well, someone had asked me. I think I was in the military at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And someone had asked me, they were like, well, if you do become a teacher, what level of teaching would you want to do? And I had never thought about it because I was just more so concerned about the goal of becoming a teacher.
Uh-huh.
And, so I sat there and I said, I was like, I told him, I was like, I never really thought about it. And I said, I was like, I think high school. And they said, well, why did you pick high school? Why would you pick high school? And I said, well, because I was like, I don't really like kids too much. I think they're too high energy, and I don't think I could keep up with that every single day. And I was like, and then there's middle school, and I said,
there's too many hormones.
It's too awkward. It's too awkward. It's like a whole cringe fest.
Hey, Mr.
Yeah.
Like, first off, I don't want you talking to me like that ever again.
It's like, number one, come back to me when you know who you are.
You communicate by writing down what you want to tell me, and we'll go from there.
And so I was like, I think I'd do high school, and they were like, well, what makes you think that you'd want to do high school? And I said, I just told you. And I was like, I feel like for the most part, kids in high school are kind of a little bit more put together. I was like, obviously, they're teenagers, so they're not super well put together people. Like, they're not adults yet. Like, they're not fully functioning
They're still
humans.
impressionable.
And, they're still kids. But I think that in the grand scheme of things, as a teacher, I think being a high school teacher is something that would be a little bit, not necessarily easier, but it'd be more manageable. I think is what it was for me. Is that it would just be more manageable for me to deal with certain situations, because it's like, okay, man, everybody's been where you're at right now.
No.
And I'm not saying that you haven't been a kid, or that you didn't go through that awkward phase of being
right.
a pubescent teenager, but
now you're at an age where you think your opinions matter.
kind of, yeah. And I started to think about that, where it's like, okay, now those teenagers are the ones who think that like they have a voice, like they're the kids who, especially like student government kids who think that like, no, like this is what it means to be in a leadership position. And I'm like, are you sure?
100% sure. And that's the thing is, so because I want to teach high school as well, but it's just because I feel like it's easier to communicate with, because kids are cool, but I know I'd be getting mad. I'd be like, why aren't you getting it? With a teenager, if they're not getting it, I'm like, why aren't you getting it? And they can explain to me.
And there's probably a degree of that as well, as far as my thought processes, where I think the communication thing would be a lot easier to deal with.
And I feel like you could roast a teenager better than you roast a kid.
You roast a kid, you're losing your job.
You roast a
teenager, their parents are probably going to laugh with you and be like, you got that right.
You say, Bill, your handwriting's atrocious, dude.
Bill, get a blanket.
But you tell a kid, yo, dude, this art, crap. Wait, what is this, a stick figure? Why are these arms different sizes? Is he an amputee?
Yeah, and
then you gotta be in the principal's office being like, why did you call this kid's art terrible?
Yeah,
and how I know that? Happened to me. Our teacher said I had slop art, and I said, no. No, I don't. And I told my mom, who was in the principal's office. Next day, our teacher comes out. She takes me in the hallway and says, hey, so I didn't call your fish slop art. And I was like, oh, but you did. Little kid me said, yes, you did. Do this. So imagine, like a 65-year-old lady arguing with a third grader about the negative comment she had said to him the day prior.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get into an argument with a 6-year-old.
But it's terrible because when the principal gets lady in trouble, and she pulls me out, and her apologies say, but I didn't call it slop art, and I'm sitting there like, man, here's the thing. Slop art is not in my vocabulary, so the fact that I would be making this up is pretty far-fetched.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I said, yes, you did. Little kid me, no filter. Like, but you did. You really did.
And I think that's the thing, like even working at Great Wolf Lodge, you try to like make the kids feel like they're included in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first time that I had ever been like really taken aback by something that the kid said, I was like, oh, that's a cool wand. Like, I wish my wand was as cool as that, because obviously, we got our own wands.
Give you a dirty look, didn't he?
He didn't give me a dirty look. He said, I really don't like it when people lie to me. And I said, and I just stared at the kid. I had no idea what he was. I was like, what?
His parents are probably lawyers or something. I don't like it when you lie to me, man. You can't be nice to these kids. And that's the thing.
You can't be nice to him. You can't be mean to him. There's seemingly no middle ground as an adult with a child.
But in high school, hopefully they'll know how to detect whether it's sarcasm or like a legitimate compliment. Like, hey, you did good work on this project. Mr. Parody, I don't like it when people lie to me. Like, what the heck are you talking about, Chet?
I'd be like, what are you talking? I'm not lying to you. Like, you did a good job. Like, you got an A.
You see this A? This is a pity A. What the heck?
I'd be like, I'll be all right, buddy.
All right, B it is.
B it is.
What?
Well, I'm telling my parents.
Tell them, dude, fuck you and your parents. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to public school and you expect them to get private education.
Yeah. And so, and I think for me, it's one of those. It's just one of those weird oddities about like when
Mhm.
when whoever it was that asked me that question that I was like, I mean, damn, I really don't know. I was like, I feel like you're kind of like even college kids, because then those are the people who really think that their opinions matter.
I pay to be here, so I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it's like just because you pay money to go here doesn't mean that you're right.
Yeah, but kid, don't you understand that I already have the degree? You don't.
Oh my god, could you imagine? You're sitting in a college class, like you're just trying to get your credits, like you live in the dorms and there was like a party or whatever that kept you up all night and you just you didn't get any sleep. And then all of a sudden the teacher starts laying to this kid and he's like, no, you realize I have the degree and you don't?
you're you're
Like
paying
you're
money to hear me talk, and you think you're right, but you don't have the degree, man. I would hold that over people's heads. Why doesn't it do this? I don't know. Maybe because I have the degree.
I think that'd be my opening statement as a college professor. I'd be like, so I know everybody in here thinks that you're probably right about some things. Just know that in this class, you're probably not right,
Because
because obviously I went to school and I have a piece of paper saying that I know more than you do, and that's why you're here. Welcome to philosophy 101.
and I already know that you're not smarter than me because you just put yourselves in debt to hear me talk about getting a piece of paper. So now that you're all here wasting my time and yours, let's get
Let's get on with this class.
Lesson 1: How to finesse chumps.
So lesson number 1, y'all are stupid.
Ponzi 101.
Y'all ever heard of Bernie Madoff? Check this out.
Look at this.
Step number 1: convince the entire youth that they have to go to college to succeed. Step number 2: profit.
You guys are going to give me money, and then you're going to get careers to which people give you money to make their own.
Which is funny. Like, I remember like growing up and like figuring out like what tenure was, where it's like like obviously college professors are like they've been there so long that they're like they could pretty much get away with whatever they want, and they're not really in danger of necessarily getting fired. And I remember like growing up thinking, I'm like, well, that's stupid. Like, if you say something stupid or you do something stupid, like you should like, there's consequences to your actions because obviously you grow up learning. There's consequences to your actions.
Yeah, and then you find out. Not if you have money.
Not if you have money. Not if you stayed in the same spot for 15 years.
Like OJ, he had money.
OJ definitely had money.
I mean, he ended up getting in trouble in the end, but that's because you can only make so many.
You
It's like an exponential growth.
Yeah, you can only make so many mistakes before they're like, hey, buddy,
Here's how much money
it sucks to be you, but we have to make an example.
The graph. This is how much money you can have, and this is the mistakes you can make, and this is when they'll meet each other, and when it cancels out.
When you get to the point of that cancellation, like sorry, buddy, but your life's over.
That's when they start doing the rehabs and stuff.
You're probably gonna spend some time in prison. Just know that you're an adult now, okay?
Now, some people, their money is higher, but their little crime thing is lower. Like Lindsay Lohan, she keep going to jail, and that's why just do. And then she did the rehabs and everything. You see what I'm saying? So there's like a limit to it, but that's just its own kind of thing, and that goes back because tenure. A lot of people are like, this academic academy is so prided on the fact that we have Dr. whatever his name is, and you're like, yeah, but Dr. Schmigglesmorf over there banging on all the girl students. Professor over here just hooking up with every girl 18 to 35. Well, he's been here for 15 years, and since he's been here, we've had amazing test scores. You know why you've had amazing test
Yeah,
scores?
they're lies, fabricated. Nobody knows what you're talking about.
But I know what I'm talking about because I already have the degree.
Because I have the degree, okay? I'm right, you're wrong. This piece of paper proves it. And,
Oh, and then you coming at me with your associates and your bachelors? Boom, doctorate, I know more than you.
I know twice as much as you. I got him at... So it was funny when So I'd never been to a college uh, graduation before. My mom had gone to school or back to school to get her accounting degree, and
Oh, I remember those. Yeah.
obviously that's when they start introducing like, okay, like here's all the master's programs, and they're like, oh yeah, like so and so got a master's in electrical engineering, and their thesis was on how electricity passes through DVDs and to concurrent blah blah blah, and it's just like I had never felt so dumb in my life because I'm like, dude, I understand that's what they're studying, but like, what are they talking about?
No, and that's how I feel watching Jeopardy. I feel like an idiot. But
It's just so funny because Jeopardy's supposed to be just like general knowledge questions. It's like, that's not general knowledge. I'm not supposed to know who wrote a classical symphony in 1814
yeah, dude.
in the backwoods of Kentucky.
Like how many Buicks were sold between it? Like I don't know. I mean, how many Buicks are sold today? But
I don't even know what a Buick is.
I think it's a deer. No, so my mother did the same thing. She went back to school and she got a degree with social working, so she could work with the kids and everything, the state government programs, and she has a job with it now, and she loves it. That's great. But I remember going to that graduation. I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm so happy for my mom. But then all the kids are going up there, like adults, whatever they were at the time. They're giving their speeches, and I was so bored because I couldn't care. They make it interesting. This one guy's like, yeah, I'm the guy who's like the whatever the top dog or the equivalent of a high school valedictorian or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and he's giving this speech, and I'm sitting there like, if I ever decided to kill myself, this would be the time. Like this is it on my mom's big day because this dude is boring the piss out of me, and I can't tell you what he was talking about other than the fact that he was talking about the college and the colors and what it means to him, and I'm sitting there like, bro, this is like weird because I'd understand if it was a college with like the dorms and everything and you stayed there. This isn't even that cool of a college. Like you're sitting there going, I will cherish these memories. What memories? You sitting at home on your laptop typing a paper? What'd you do? You didn't play for the football team. You didn't do nothing for the drama program.
This is a community college, sir. Sit back down.
I will remember these memories. With what, your little associate's degree? And I'm not saying if you have an associate's, it's terrible. But some people, man, they're just like, you see this right here? This means I'm better than you. And the only way someone can say that they're better than you is if they do have a doctorate. I'll say it. You're better than me if you have a doctorate degree. Why? Because you're now officially Doctor last name. Because someone says, Mr. or Mrs., you go, Doctor.
Doctor, excuse me. This piece of paper proves that I'm a doctor.
Yeah, well, over this phone, you're Mr. and Mrs. What's up? Catchy saying.
Yeah, and for me, it's one of those like super weird things that like I feel like education is such like a bougie thing. Like I was talking to one of the guys that I work with now, and he's like, yeah, my buddy was in a or his buddy was in like a computer programming class
Mhm.
or something like that, and he's like, yeah, he's like, and so he's like, I went onto YouTube and I watched all these videos about pretty much the same thing that I was learning, and then like a little bit more. He's like, I learned more from 15 hours of YouTube videos than I did in a 2-year college program.
And I think that that's also because people who teach things on YouTube, they just want to get you the information. Whereas in a lot of college classes, they want to go over every detail, like the history of. And you're like, I don't need to know the history of it. I don't even need that degree, dude. Control Alt Delete. I know everything I need to.
Task manager deleted.
Boom. Open. Close. Laptop. Plug in. Unplug. Boom. Ethernet cable. Blah blah. That's it. I'm good, dude. I know everything about the computer. It broken. Restart. Someone says click F13, you go, there ain't an F13 on the keyboard, fool.
But yeah, man. I for me, I think education is one of this. It's such a weird, like it's not a weird concept to me.
Because getting
But
educated is a good thing to do.
But I think the way that society is like hounding people like to be educated, I think it's such a weird.
And I think it's because we have the privilege of being able to be educated, and that's where it comes from. So a lot of people don't have that, opportunity. But I think that a lot of people try to put their careers and everything all into like they put all their eggs in the one basket. Because the story that you hear all the time is, yeah, I have my degree, but it's worthless. Why? Because there's no job in that field. Well, why'd you go for that field? Because I wanted to. But if you, so you spent money knowing that you wouldn't get a job?
Yeah.
What? You did? Why? Well, because I thought you didn't think.
Like
I deserve that degree.
and it's not that they don't deserve the degree. If you put the time in, sure, fine, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But do it on your own time, and then don't like. I think that's the biggest thing for me is getting a worthless is people who do get a worthless degree,
Mm-hmm.
and then they complain about it, and it's like, well, you knew, like, there's no way that I remember Bryce was telling me about that,
Mm-hmm.
where he was telling me he's like, look, being in the film industry, my degree is an art degree.
Mm-hmm.
In the grand scheme of things, it's pretty much useless.
Unless
I'm doing what I want to do, and that's where it starts to pan out. But
I think he, for the most part, kind of gets to do what he wants to do.
I'd say for the most part, he's one of the very few people who, even had he not necessarily had his degree,
I think he still would have done it.
I still think he would have been able to do what he wanted to.
I think the degree just looks nice for him to say I have.
And there's probably a little bit of that goes into certain degrees where it's like you don't necessarily need the degree to prove that you know what you're talking about. Like, and
but if you're in a competitive market where someone else is going for it and they don't have the degree,
then yes, you do look better because you did spend the time to educate yourself about the subject, which is totally fine. But yeah, man, it's definitely one of those things where I think it can be beneficial, sure, if you know what you're doing.
But that's the thing. None of us do. We don't know anything. We still think that you can only pick between two parties, even though there's a third option on the ballot.
You literally write anybody you want in there.
But that's just we don't know anything. We just exist.
That's very true. In 10,000 years, it's not going to mean anything.
Nope. You know what's going to matter in 10,000 years? Nada. I won't be here. I won't care in 10,000 years. I care about while I'm here, and if you dickwads are trying to make my life difficult in my time being here, it will make your life equally as difficult. I promise you.
I do not care. More. I do not care.
I am not here to argue. I am here to end you. I will destroy you and everything you hold dear. Whether it be through my words or my actions, you will not survive this conflict.
I would say that's probably as good a spot to end as any. What would you say?
That's a wrap.
Well, obviously, so like we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, this is the first podcast in a while. We're gonna try to get back into it. Try to rebuild this thing
with less restroom breaks.
With less restroom breaks. We'll plan a little bit better.
It was like an unplanned meal before I'm done.
Yeah, pretty much is what it really turned out to be. It was definitely unplanned, but I think once we do start getting a little bit more planning on our end, I think we'll start pumping out these episodes a little bit more often. And
I know the whole three of you listening, fourth one being us, we appreciate you. Share this wherever people need to listen to podcasts. Drive home, drive to work, at work. I know some of you be working from home during the quarantines. I'm on that, working from home swag myself. It's cool, but hey, you know what? Just put this through your ear holes, enjoy life, have a giggle, have your mind opened, and I think that's a good place to end it.
All right. There will be links in the YouTube descriptions, obviously, because that's just what we do.
We don't got a merch store yet, but expect it.
Yeah, merch is definitely probably coming probably sooner than anyone would want.
Within the next millennia.
so should be on the lookout for that. All right, this was the Bruising Bros podcast.
Don't sue us,
please. We have no money. We have bills.
I live in a studio apartment and I'm working from home with another person. So let that be a lesson.
Let that be a lesson. We have the degrees to prove it. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Peace.